Crafty Cats, and welcome back to my channel, Whimsy Cat DIY Home Decor. I'm Kat and I have a new video for you today. Today we're going to work on three thrift flip projects from some items I got a couple weeks ago during a thrift haul. So I hope you'll enjoy it, and I hope you'll hang out with me for a while. And if you like this video, please consider subscribing below, giving me a big thumbs up because it does help my channel grow. Thank you so much, and let's do this. Okay, our first project is making vintage flower pots. I purchased 3 small terracotta pots from Walmart, and I'm just going to paint them with some chalk paint. And I've really fallen in love with the Waverly chalk paint in the color Celery. I just think it's such a nice spring look, and I love it out in my garden with my plants. It just blends very, very well with everything else that's out there. So the goal is not to get full coverage or an excellent paint job. We're just trying to get the paint on. And here you're going to see an up-close look so you can see I'm not perfect in any way, but we're just getting a nice first coat on there. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to print out some labels. I use graphicfairy.com. I'll link it below. It's free. You can go in there and they've got, gosh, millions of different free printables for you. But I chose some French design and I printed them out on cardstock. Now I'm just taking some watered down Waverly Antique wax, and I'm just giving it a more of a vintage look. So it looks aged. I'm doing the edges first. I want the edges to be a little bit darker than the rest of the label. But this is just a great way to add some character, some texture to a piece. That's really easy. Anyone can do this. And now I am just covering the entire label with the antique wax. But now it's a little lighter in the center, and you can see the edges are a little darker. I'm using my heat gun to dry it because I'm not very patient. I wanted to get it done. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to apply the labels right to the vintage pots. So to do this, I'm using Mod Podge. And since my pots most likely are going to be out on my patio, I'm using the outdoor Mod Podge. I'm just putting a generous coat on there, and then I'm laying my label down, pressing it down well, trying to make sure all of the ends are pressed down well. And now I'm putting a coat of Mod Podge over top, making sure, because that's cardstock, so it's a bit thicker, so just making sure I've got it under all the edges so it's not going to lift up or any water's going to get in there. And now I'm just adding some decorative twine to it. I just like twine. I think it gives it just a little bit more character when you're trying to put together something vintage like this. So I just put a couple strands around the top of the pot, and now I'm going to make just a little finger bow, wrapping it around several times around 3 fingers. Then taking a piece of the twine and just tying it down the center to get just a nice little bow. I just like the simplicity of a little finger bow. And I'm just using some hot glue, and I'm just going to glue it right on the front of that pot. Trim it up a little, fan out the little bows. Then you can see, look how stinking cute that is. I just really love it. Here's what the final product looked like. I used some flowers that I got from Dollar Tree, and I put a little Spanish moss in there and just made 3 cute little pots with different arrangements. I think I used some lavender in one, some daisies in one, and then those pink little roses in the third one. I just love it. I think it's so cute out on my patio. All right, our second project is wood candlesticks. I bought table legs, and these table legs are so chunky, so much character, so kind of beaten up and worn. I took them out to my shop. I used my miter saw, and I sawed the one table leg into 3 pieces. I actually used 2 of the table legs on this project, but I just cut it where you might naturally have a cut. And now I've got really 4 pretty chunky candlesticks. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to paint these. I'm using the Rust-Oleum chalk paint in linen white. It's kind of my favorite go-to chalk paint for any type of DIY home decor. And once again, not trying to get a beautiful paint job on these. I am just trying to get some coverage on there. My plan is to distress them. I want to show that beautiful wood character. I'm using my turntable that I picked up at the Goodwill. So if you don't have a turntable for painting, I highly suggest you go to the Goodwill or a local thrift store. You can pick these up really cheap, and it just makes life so much easier. It's a game changer. So I'm just putting, a pretty generous coat on there, just getting it all over, but not being so careful that I've, got complete coverage. As I said, we're going to distress these, but I just love these. Look at the character these have. These are huge candlesticks. I have no doubt when I put them in my retail booth, they'll probably sell day one. I don't know what it is about my local community, but they love candlesticks, and especially big and chunky candlesticks like these will do very, very well. All right, we got 2 coats. I actually did 2 coats of paint. And now what we're doing is we're just distressing these. I'm taking a sanding sponge. I'm going over kind of naturally where you might see some distressing on the edges, anywhere. I mean, to me, these look really old. And so I'm going to, try to kind of heavily distress them. I was going to use milk paint. I haven't tried that technique yet, so maybe in an upcoming video we'll try that. I just didn't have any milk paint on hand, or I think this would be the perfect project to give that a try. But once again, like you said, we're just stressing all the edges, just giving it a very worn, aged look. These candlesticks, I'm falling in love with them as I am continuing to work on them. I hate to actually put them in the shop. I'd love to keep them for myself, but if I kept everything I love, my house would be full and my shop would be empty. So, these babies are on their way to the retail booth soon. But look at that. Okay, our third project is this wood riser. This was actually a cheese tray, so it had that little thing on the side that the little knife slides down into, and I'm just pulling that off. I'm taking my hammer, I'm pulling it out. I'm taking my little Zona miter saw, which I love that saw. I use it so much. I'm just taking off any of that excess wood, and then I'm just putting some wood filler in there, just filling up those holes. I love this wood filler. It's going to sand off nicely, and then we'll be ready to paint. So you can see it did sand off very nicely, and now we're ready to paint. This is a big chunky piece of wood. It is hard wood. It's a beautiful piece of wood. So what I'm going to do is on the legs, I'm just taking that same Rust-Oleum white in linen white, and I'm just going to paint the legs. I'm planning on distressing this piece as well, just to kind of match the others. So I'm just generously going over the legs, not trying to be careful. Frankly, I'm a very messy painter, so it's very hard for me to do any type of detail paint. But it's okay because it's chalk paint, and chalk paint is water-based, so it's pretty easy to clean up. So you can see I was a little messy, so I'm just taking a baby wipe and I'm going to wipe off that excess that I got on the bottom of this piece, just trying to clean it up a little bit, making sure I've wiped off all the excess chalk paint to get it ready so I can start painting the rest of it. But look at this. It's so stinking cute. I just really like this piece. I think it'll really sell quickly probably in the store whenever I do wood pieces. That seems to be a really hot item, so we shall see. I'm just making sure after I wiped it off that I did wipe off a little bit too much on the legs, so just kind of touching it up with the baby wipe. Now we're ready to paint the top. And I'm using Waverly Paint and Ink. I love this paint. I'm obsessed with it on any type of wood projects. So I'm just generously going around, making sure I get a full coverage. This is where I am trying to do a pretty good paint job. I want to make sure that, I'm still going to distress it, but this paint I just love. And, it's so good with coverage. One coat and we're good to go. So I'm just painting each side. I'm trying to be a little more careful this time. And I'm using a smaller, more detailed brush to make sure that I'm doing a pretty detailed job on the paint. And you can see I'm getting ready to paint that next side where we had to use the wood filler. And it's dried completely. I've sanded it down. It's a very smooth surface now. You're not going to be able to see that at all. So it's great. It's going to be a perfect surface for the paint. Now we've finished the paint and it's dry. I'm coming back with my handy sanding sponge and we're going to distress this. We're just hitting all the edges. We're going to do a really nice distress on this. I love to distress wood with the black Waverly chalk paint in the color ink. It's such a deep color and it distresses beautifully on wood. So I'm going to distress it pretty heavily, and then I'm also going to distress the legs. I didn't take as much care with my paint job on the legs intentionally. I wanted to have this really kind of farmhouse look. So just taking the sanding sponge, sanding off some of the paint. I want the wood to show through. And now I love using the Waverly Antique Wax over the Waverly Ink Paint. When you put this over ink paint, it richens the color and the wood that's showing through from distressing, it just makes it pop. It's one of my favorite things to do. I do it frequently. Every time I do a piece like this, I put it in my store. It may be there a day, 2 days at the most, and it's gone. People really seem to like this technique. I'm also adding some of the wax to the white legs just to tone that white down just a little bit. So it really kind of complements the top and it just looks like a really kind of aged, cohesive piece. Okay, are you ready for the final reveal? I'm excited to show it to you. Here it is. Look at these beautiful vintage pots. I so think they're adorable. I can see them as being in your home or even out on your patio. They're just so cute. They really just make me happy. And there's the wood riser. And look at our candlesticks. I did forget the footage. I did purchase those wood tops from Hobby Lobby for $2.99 for two. So they'd have kind of a flat surface, and I stained those so it would kind of match the rest of the decor. But I thought it was beautiful. If you like this video, I hope you will subscribe below and give me a big thumbs up. Thank you. See you next time.